This is Les, my Kiwi friend, who's also here as an English teacher, working for YEF. He got here at the same time, and I've decided to con him into answering some questions. Yay!
Cool.
So, first question, why Russia? Why are you here?
Basically, why not? I studied Russia when I was at university for politics and history, so it's the whole thing of actually, it'd be quite nice to actually look at the places I studied about, and also to get my head around what is Russia.
What is Russia? Biggest question ever.
Yeah.
Alright, and you, how much Russian do you speak?
Very little.
Yeah, so, like, give us an example. I mean, what kind of thing can you do in Russian?
Можно кофе латте, пожалуйста?
Okay, so you can ask for a coffee, please. Cool, yeah. And so how has it been, like, not speaking very much Russian, but being in a country where, you know, less than 5% of the population actually speak any English?
It's been quite interesting or entertaining at times where I've had to use sign language, I've had to use like pictures, occasionally I've had to pull out the phone and do Google Translate as well, so that has been quite interesting, but I think that it's survivable. The whole thing of what I know is that the shops, Russian shop assistants don't say much. It's just a case of they'll say the amount and they'll point to it on the till, and you just nod, give them money, and they'll nod and go, give you a change, and it's like, and then you might say spasiba, and it's like,
Okay.
So
cool.
that's the thing which I've noticed as well. A couple of places which I've been to where I've ordered stuff, a couple of people, I've had the stol,
Yeah.
then I've had to slow right down and go, da.
Yeah.
Occasionally you might have the odd person that speaks fluent English or reasonably good English, and they'll just basically break into English and just keep on talking. It's like, even though you're still speaking Russian, it's like, they'll just ask and say, you want this?
And you're like, yeah, I do. Thank you. Alright, and so what has been the most surprising thing about Russia? What has surprised you, if anything?
Probably the size of the country. I know that it's the biggest country, but I mean, for me, coming from New Zealand, we actually, catching a train to Moscow.
Can walk around it in a day, yeah?
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, the whole thing of like, if I wanted to travel to, say, the capital city, hop in a car and drive there, and you see a lot of different things, and you're close to the beach, this, that, and the other. Whereas here, you talking about catching a train, and it can be a long journey. And
2 weeks later, you're in the east,
the other thing too, flying over the country as well, it's like it was a clear day and you see like the famous black soils and it's like, whoa, this place is big.
Yeah.
So just miles and miles of land and it's like, there's no sea.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you can understand why the Tsars fought so much to have a seafront.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the other thing too is that with this city in particular, it's so flat.
It is really flat actually. It's great though because you see all the rollerbladers going around.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so cool. I mean, a couple of days ago I was walking home and I just saw 3 guys in rollerblades and the middle guy had like a boombox on his shoulder.
Yep. I
was like, did I just go back to the 80s? I'm assuming that was the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's like, speaking of 80s, like they had a hip-hop contest a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And it was funny because they had the bits of cardboard and they were doing the breakdancing moves on that, and that they had the whole ghetto thing, and it was like, oh my god, they have a hip-hop competition in, St. Petersburg. Oh yeah, it's always quite big, and it's
well, it seems to be a really big thing. I mean, all forms of dance really I found are much, much more pursued here. But yeah, things like hip-hop are just really, well, not hip-hop, just breakdancing stuff are really quite popular.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And because you're the first guy I've interviewed, Russian women, how are they different? Tell us about the Russian woman.
I mean, one of the things I had to get used to was that there seemed to be a uniform for Russian women where it's basically makeup. So a lot of sort of blusher, the short skirts, and also the knee-high boots, and that seemed to be like the uniform. But
well, boots are really practical though.
Yeah, that's the thing which I discovered in winter is the fact is they're practical. Like the high heels, they serve a purpose. They break through the ice.
I've been told this, but I haven't subscribed to it. Yeah.
But I mean, one thing I've noticed is the fact is that they tend to be very old-fashioned as well from the ones I've talked to as well. The whole thing of keeping in touch with the family, looking after your grandmother, spending time together with your family, and there's those traditions, like for example, they have the pancake festival, the whole thing of the whole sort of family will get together and they'll, like for example, have nieces or nephews and they'll make pancakes for the family. The whole thing of actually following those traditions as well. the stereotype of the whole thing of they're really easy is not true from what I found.
From what he's found.
Oh,
anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal.
Exactly, and my sort of thing is that most of them are very sort of very friendly, very sort of curious to get to know different foreigners as well. The whole thing of like, yes, they wear pretty things, but then you find out that they're working 2 jobs to afford those things, and that pair of boots they'll hang on to for a couple of years. They know how to look after their clothes. I talked to another woman. One thing which is quite for a Russian woman is knowing how to use a sewing machine, because a few women, what they'll do is they'll look at Vogue or whatever and look at
make them.
Yeah. So there's a thing where you need to be quite resourceful as well. And you also look at different people where they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to get by. The whole thing of basically they seem to be very aspirational people.
Yeah.
The whole thing of that they know that, in order to get by, they need to have that financial independence. They're not going to necessarily get that through getting married. So the idea is that they need to be sort of financially independent, stand on their own 2 feet as well.
Okay. I find that really interesting actually, because it is sort of different from what I've heard from, like, I guess other expat guys and kind of Russian guys as well. And it's been different in my experience, I guess, with my friends and things. But I mean, I guess, would most of your exposure to Russian women be at work?
At work, but also friends of friends as well, which I've, a friend suggested I try a dating site to see different people, and I thought, okay, this is walking on sort of dangerous ground, but okay, you only live once. And there is that sort of thing where you have a lot of women which are, they want to meet a foreign guy because they want to practice their English.
Yeah.
They also want to understand this is how another country works as well. They want to share their ideas. They want to know, okay, so what do you think? What is the norm, say, if you go to Australia, New Zealand, or Europe? And I mean, the fact is that, like I talked about the English thing, they want to do it because they can't necessarily afford English lessons, but they know that if they actually practice with someone, they'll talk about. Initially, I found the conversations were very, very weird, but then I found out that's like they'll go from one topic to another. One thing they'll talk about clothes, then they'll talk about the environment, then they'll talk about popular music, and it's like we jump from topic to topic. But then you're realising that they want to have that exposure to vocab and also the grammatical forms as well. And you have always random sort of, am I saying this in do I need to say this in present perfect or should I say this in past simple? And it's like, I've clocked off a while ago, so let's just stick to coffee.
Yeah, okay. So language rapist says Naz likes to call them.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Alright, so that's probably been the most PC and least jaded thing I've ever heard said about Russian women. It was very interesting though.
I mean, I have met the odd person, which is basically the whole thing of they sent message, we have to have dinner at the Hotel Astoria. Why is that? A gentleman treats a woman right, and therefore, you need to take me to Hotel Astoria. I want to drink this type of champagne. It's like, whoa. I want ikra. I want Chornay ikra. And it's like, whoa, that stuff's expensive. It's like, but if you're a real gentleman, you would pay for that because that's how to treat a lady. And it's like, okay, and yeah, they do exist, but it happens anywhere in the world as well. I mean,
yeah, I guess so. I mean, because they got sugar daddies and sugar babies and stuff in other countries. So actually, speaking of like caviar, which is what he just said, in my Russian class yesterday, my teacher was talking about how back in the day, before caviar was like outrageously expensive, it was kind of like the poor people's food.
Yep.
Like lobster was back in the day in England. So she was talking about how she could remember that when they couldn't afford anything else, her father would go out and just buy a kilo of like caviar for dinner. Which is just like, imagine a kilo of like caviar now. I don't even, because I asked her, I was like, look, how much does it cost? And she's like, I don't want to look at the prices, they're too scary. So that's interesting. Alright, so what are your 3 worst things about Russia? What are your 3 worst experiences or 3 most hated things? Or
I think recently, I mean, it's the whole thing of pickpockets. Like, we don't have them back home, and the whole thing of like, I'm completely naive how to stop them and stuff like that. I discovered that to my peril last weekend when I went to Burger King, sat in the queue, then it's like, oh, get my camera out. Oh, no camera.
oh my god.
And it's like, okay, where's it gone? And of course you're thinking, who was nearby me? Oh, children. And
wow.
And someone said that's the thing, you don't have pickpockets, so it's the whole thing of these it's down
I
to
don't
find
know,
out.
because I'm still cautious and stuff. It's like Sydney, so I haven't changed my behaviour in any way, because I don't expect to be.
It's the thing for me, I just looked at the point of view, I had it in my pocket, the pocket was zipped up, and it's the whole thing of, okay, it's no way it's going to get taken, and I mean, I think I was, whether they got it off me when I was down the queue or when I sat down, I had the jacket, close by, and, yes, you get distracted by whatever, but again, that's something, Russian hospitals.
You had a great experience in a Russian hospital, right? Can you describe for us, not how you got there, I'll leave you to get it for yourself, but what the hospital was like inside?
Well, personally, when I woke up, the first thing I thought is, am I in jail or am I in the loony bin? Because the people, I discovered afterwards, it was a drying out cell, which they have for the random drunks they find. They put them in a sort of ward. My bed was on the floor. I had pretty much the old standards mattress, which was made from rags, which they pretty much stuff with rags, lie on the floor, and that was my bed. You had people walk around in various states of undress. You also had, obviously, the mental health patients as well.
Yeah.
Pretty much the nurses' station was behind bars, and people would ask questions. Occasionally you would have two nurses come in and they would just do, who are you, what are you doing here?
What am I doing here? I don't know how I got here.
Well, I mean, they basically had all my details, and I think it was one of those weird situations where, okay, breakfast was in the old enamel bowls, so it was kasha and bread. And it's like, yep, cool.
Kasha.
And it wasn't too bad. The toilet was pretty much one stainless steel sort of thing, but it had been cleaned. Like, pretty much they don't have cleaners for one stand. And it was one of those things where it's like no toilet paper, it's just basically a stainless steel cistern, which hasn't been cleaned since the fall of the Soviet Union, and it's like, I think I can hang on. Pretty much they round up all the drunks, like the ones which they arrest for drunk and disorderly, they pull out, get them in there, and you have people which will basically stay there. I think it was quite freaky because you had people actually smoking in the ward as well, which is apparently permitted in the drying out wards.
Yeah.
And no one spoke English from what I understand as well. They kind of figured, yes, he's from New Zealand. I remember collecting my stuff, and like, for example, all the loose change and money I had in my wallet had disappeared, and it's like, as someone said, you're looking at people which basically are paid only 20,000 rubles, if that, a month.
I heard it's even less than that for doctors in most cases.
Yeah, and they just said it's the whole thing of like nurses, pretty much, if they see something thinking they need more than you, tough luck. Even my watch was taken, and someone said, just take it.
Just let it go, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That would probably be the worst overall experience as well. And what's the next one? I think the other one is probably dealing with the beggars all the time. I mean, the fact is,
they kind of disappeared over winter, didn't they?
I
really noticed that.
They have disappeared over winter, but they were still popping up now and then, and there seems to be like a regular crew, because what I've been told is don't give them any money, because they talk about the big end mafia, where pretty much it's like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Even if you see the poor old babushka, like I know when we had the sort of minus 20 degrees, there was an old lady standing outside and she was shivering, and you feel, oh, I should really give it, whatever loose change I have.
There's one guy near Chernyshevskaya metro, and he, all winter, he would go around every night with a pram with a baby in it, asking for money. Like, it's like a black Russian from somewhere. And now though he doesn't have the baby, now he has crutches instead. So he's mixing things up at least. But I'm like,
it's the thing is that you do stuff like that, and people say it's part of the strategy. The fact is that you have the mafia and stuff like that. But what I've noticed, a couple of them have been quite sort of aggressive in terms of had people grab me by the arm and try and grab me, or I've had the people which have been quite sort of.
I tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, that's what I want to do as well. I've been lucky in terms of a couple of times I've had Russian people and they've actually literally pushed them away, or actually grabbed me and just say, just move on. I think last weekend was a good example where I actually had someone, like, they grabbed me and they're trying to actually get inside my jacket as well, and it's like, just quickly push the arm away, just sidestep it and just walk on.
See, I don't know why exactly. Like, a lot of people tend to assume that I'm Russian, and I don't know whether because of that I get hassled less. I don't know, because I haven't really seen you out and about, so I don't know whether you stand out or not. I can't remember.
I don't know, because I mean, I've had the random sort of people ask me questions in Russian and stuff like that, but I think I've been told that one of the things I've got to be careful of is, like, for example, if you sort of loiter around the metro sort of areas, you know, you're going to have people like that. Like, I've talked to friends, you know, having a smoke, whatever, and they said they will normally go for people who are loitering.
Yeah.
Even, there's a couple of parks which I've been told there's certain groups of people just keep well away from them. I've noticed it's been like that in the past couple of weeks, like even walking home.
Well, now it's warmer again, yeah.
Yeah, and people have been a bit more blatant. I mean, with this particular street, you have quite a few off licenses as well. So people get tanked up, and of course they spend all their money, and they need to basically get their bottle of vodka. I mean,
and they have fights outside his window.
Yep. We've had that happen. Well, I've had people sort of come and tell me that the mafia's after them. They need money to pay off the mafia. But I mean, that's the thing. I think you have the sort of alcoholics, and people said that's just a fact of life. So it's just a case with this particular street. There's the whole thing of people said to me, just be careful what side you walk on. The other thing too is that sometimes it pays to listen to the old iPod and just ignore them as well.
Yeah.
Even someone said the fact is that you get the spammers, so the people that give out the pamphlets. Like if you're,
I have managed to not accept a single pamphlet.
I was told don't do that. Just basically be rude and it should
like sometimes I try to put it in my hand and I'm like, no, I'm not holding that.
Yeah, I'm told to do that because if you're one of those people that actually collects the pamphlets and stuff like that, the other thing too is that someone said to me is like, did you give money to beggars when you first arrived here? Like one person said, if you said the old ladies that pays to give them money, and I said, yeah, I did, because the old lady said, yeah, you don't do that to anyone. Like you have to be a real hard ass.
Yeah.
Even if it's an old lady, yes, she's upset, whatever. They said if you want to help, the best thing to do is say, do you want a loaf of bread? The first thing to do. And if they say, yeah, that'll be great, and can you give me a bowl of vodka as well? It's like, okay, well.
Well, actually, it's strange to actually words. I remember I crashed with one of my friends in Western Sydney, well, not Western Sydney, like inner west, not way out west. And I was walking back through Newtown and stopped in the bakery to grab some breakfast before work. And this, like a beggar in Australia came up to me in the bakery and was like, can I have some money? I was like, no, you can have a sandwich if you want. And he was like, what? And just started throwing stuff at me. I'm like, you said you wanted it for food.
That's what people said, is that's how you basically, I mean, again, that's apparently a new way to deal with beggars, is the whole thing, instead of telling them to fuck off, you actually tell, do you want a loaf of bread or do you want something at McDonald's? Because the other thing too is that it's actually been quite good avoiding McDonald's, because you have a lot of beggars that float around there asking people for small change.
Okay.
And someone said, you either often buy me, or if they tell you to go get stuff, then you basically say, okay, sorry mate. Yeah. But I think that's just something which, I mean, again, it's quite normal. And I think, as someone said, because you're still new, you tend to be looking around, you tend to basically make eye contact with people as well.
I don't. We've had such completely different experiences here. And like, I don't make eye contact with anybody. And I just tell everybody to fuck off. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in your problems today.
I've been told to actually just be careful with eye contact, because people might think you're a loony, and that's where you might find yourself back in hospital again and at the special place.
God forbid you make eye contact, be locked up in the special place.
I think that's the thing, because I found out that that particular hospital I ended up to, that's like the drying out clinic, and it's like, what was particularly what freaked out a lot of my friends was the whole thing of like they discharged me. Obviously I didn't know I'd been discharged, and it was like put in the waiting room. Okay, time to go home. And they said, whereabouts were you? And it's like, I was near Cappuccino. And I was like, whoa, that's like the really, really bad part of the town. This is where...
It's the cliche place.
Yeah.
It's the bad place, yeah.
And it's the whole thing, what did you do? And I said, well, I had my GPS on my phone so I could find a metro station. And did you wander around? No, I decided to get home as soon as possible. Oh, thank God, because it's a really, really dangerous place.
And keep in mind, he lives in Chonayarechka, which is not exactly a safe place at the best of times. I mean, like, definitely sort of out here has a bit of a bad rep as well, but it's nothing on Cappuccino.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing, is that with this particular street, I don't know if Laura's mentioned, but we have the strip bar as well.
Yeah, and the 24-hour sex shop as well.
Yes.
Just off-licenses, sex shops, strip clubs.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, we've also... Yeah, that's pretty much it. You also have the drunks hang around the parks as well. We talked about the young people that hang around the park, the old people that hang around the park. It's 24 hours, so you pretty much, if you look out the window, look at the park, you will see drunks.
Yeah. Alright, cool. So we'll move on from the bad things. What are your 3 best experiences or the best things about Russia?
Let's see. Let's rank them number 1. Going to the Hermitage.
Okay.
I mean, I basically...
You knew what it was. It was going to the Hermitage, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that you hear about this place, you hear about the Winter Palace, but going inside and you actually look at how much time and effort was built or spent building the place as well. And, I mean, for example, they have the motifs of the dances. It's something which I learnt about at school through, art class, and actually see it there and it's like, whoa, it's so much cooler.
I had the same thing when I went to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Yep.
I was like, oh my god, these are the tablets and things I read about in class. Yeah, okay.
And you look at how, basically, you look at, like, the Jordan staircase as a good example, where you go up there and it's like, okay, you see the peacock clock, you see the different periods. I was thinking, wow, this is really cool. And I mean, the whole size of the place is actually quite sort of mind blowing as well. Second one would have to be Red Square.
Yeah, Red Square would be one of my top things as well.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that was bad about when I went there was the whole thing. It was a very cold day in Moscow. But in saying that though, it was like you're walking on the same cobbles, you're walking past the dais where, all the Soviet
you
leaders.
blew my mind, like I said.
And it's one of those places like when you think Russia, Red Square.
Yeah, like that was it, exactly. Like I took a photo as I was walking in because I was like, holy shit, this is me. I'm in Russia now. I'm in Russia. Oh my god, my mind was just blown. Which is weird because obviously I don't think Moscow is that Russian as a city, but Red Square, I was like,
I think that I was lucky in the sense that I went inside the Kremlin as well, and I went into the armory chamber, which is where they keep all the. And again, you see the old sort of treasures of the Tsars. You see, like, for example, the modern treasures like Catherine the Great's dress, her coronation dress, her shoes, and it's like, oh my God, she's so tiny.
What a small person she was.
Well, the Victoria Museum, they have Kylie Minogue's wedding dress from Neighbours.
I believe you. I don't know. I guess.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty much that size. Thinking, oh my gosh, she's the same size as Kylie Minogue.
Yeah, well, they were all really small people.
Yeah. I mean,
like everyone in past really. It's like when you go to Port Arthur in Tassie and like the doors, if you kind of turn
well, it's
sideways.
like Peter. I mean, obviously Peter was a freak of nature in his own right.
He was a giant dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. You look at that sort of stuff, and you look at, wow, this is the Tsar's crown. This is the crown jewels. This is like, there's a famous photo of Tsar Nikolai II and his wife Alexandra when they had the bicentenary for St. Petersburg. They actually did a sort of costume party where they wore these traditional Russian costumes. Like he was dressed up as a traditional Tsar. His wife was dressed up as a traditional, Tsarina.
Beards and everything, or?
Well, he had the beard, but he had
the cone hat thing.
Cone hats, and it's got the fur trim. Yeah,
and then funny little shoes.
Yeah. You actually see the armory chain, so you see the costume there and then. It's like, wow, so that's the actual costume there.
Like some of that is really weird. I mean, and I think actually Russ has done a pretty amazing job of preserving its recent history in the last couple of 100 years, especially considering all the turbulence the country's been through. I think done an amazing job. I mean,
I think that's the thing which, I mean, looking at the Museum of Political History.
I need to go there.
It is.
Do not let me forget. Oh my god.
It is good.
So I'm a retard and didn't delete enough stuff on my camera. Camera stopped before the third and final thing, which was awesome. Your favourite thing. Third favourite thing.
Pen and Paul Fortress.
Yes, I already know this. I already know all of this.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, the thing which sort of stood out for me at the Peter Paul Fortress was the contemporary statue of Peter the Great, which they made in 2003, I believe. And the idea is that they basically based the statue on measurements they took of Peter, and also body casts of his legs and his arms, his hands and his head. So the idea is that people can actually have a look at what Peter looked like in real life. So the whole thing of like, when you look at the statue, he had unusually small head, but he had unusually big shoulders because he was remarkably strong. His legs are really long and thin. I think most women actually would die to have legs like his. I mean, I've looked at people and they were very envious, saying, "Oh, I wish I had legs like Peter." His hands.
If only, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like I've seen the statue before, as I mentioned before, and it's like, oh, cool. Wonder what that? Oh, it's a piece of modern art. But it wasn't until afterwards someone said, no, that's the statue of Peter the Great in terms of. And it wasn't until I went there, and of course they have the crowds of people. Like you got kids sitting on his knee, you have people which will climb up and pose with him as well.
Well, I bypassed it because I was like, oh, that's that important statue. Which now you said it, I remember it. But there was so many people there. I went, you know what? It's not that important.
That's the thing. Is that have you noticed that with the different statues, the Russians are very big on like they'll do the pose like I remember my first week here, I went to the Statue of Lenin by Finland Station, which is, very famous. And people do the thing, and they'll stand there for 5 minutes, pose in different lights, and they'll do it from different angles.
Whereas I prefer to pretend that the statues are killing me in some way.
Yep.
So I've got all these ridiculous photos from when I was at Pushkin with Naz about like where people are holding spears and I'm like, no, don't kill me. So I'm like the opposite of a Russian poser.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got the different things at the fortress as well, like you mentioned the museum, and the fact is it's all like the history of St. Petersburg from the Viking ages right up to...
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yep.
Although actually my favourite thing about Peter and Paul's fortress wasn't the cathedral, it wasn't the statue, which I forgot about, or anything like that. Like I said, the prison was really cool.
Yeah.
But there was an exhibition, a temporary exhibition by this Siberian artist called Kanyenka or something like that. I don't know how to say his name. And he uses, and he's still alive, this dude, I didn't realise, but he uses a microscope to create these works of art. And I mean, I think my favourite one, they're tiny, they're unbelievable. I mean, I can't, when I'm writing, like handwriting, which almost never happens, and you know, sometimes how the ink, sometimes the ink stops, it's like a little blob, like, I try and fill that blob in, and I miss. Like, I'm completely retarded. So this guy, though, was just incredibly dexterous, is incredibly dexterous. So, my favourite one was, it had a needle, made of gold, and then inside the eye of the needle, he has created out of pure gold, a caravan of camels going to an oasis in the desert. This is all in space like this. And I was like, how did he do that? And he's got these things of, mosquitoes playing the violin, like tiny little violins. I mean, and there was one which had an instrument where the strings, I think it was a balalaika or something actually, way so Russian, and the strings were literally hairs from a butterfly's wing. That is the scale of this art. It was just mind-blowing. Like, the thing is still on, and I've told everyone in my uni class to go, because it was just so cool. I was like, how is anyone this dexterous? It was incredible. And I was like, I asked the woman there, like, why did he do this? What made him start making tiny, tiny things? I mean, and I only got some of it, because obviously it was all in Russian, and like, it was very specific language. And it was something to do with post-blockade and just started doing stuff. That's pretty much what I got.
The thing is that with St. Petersburg, it's always been famous for these, like, obviously they imported a lot of artistic ideas from Europe. But then they started thinking, we can do something for ourselves. We can do something which is unique. So you have, like, for example, the miniature eggs, and they started making things a lot more miniature.
Eggs,
I mean, I've been told one place I need to visit is they actually have, I don't know where it is, but I've been told they have scale models of the different cities around Russia. And the idea is that they'll have like Red Square, but the thing is they'll go down to detail. So you see people crossing Red Square. You have trams moving, but it goes into really fine detail.
Like, how small are we talking? When you say, I think about this is a place near Canberra in Australia called Cockington Green, which has everything in miniature, like all these miniature cities and miniature castles and miniature everything. And I've had this long-standing dream, right, of where I hire a gorilla suit and pretend to be King Kong. I want to hire a gorilla suit and go there. So maybe this is something I should do with Russia.
I don't know. I was going to check it out because I've been heard that it's like, because I've talked about, I've seen the miniatures and I said, oh no, what they do is it's scale. So it's the whole thing of you can see, okay, this is where St. Isaac's is in relation to Kazansky. This is where it is in relation to Peter Paul Fortress. So you see all the significant buildings in a small area and it's like, I mean, like, a couple of my students would tell me about it, and I thought, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. No, you have to go see it because it is really good because it's really tiny, but it's really detailed as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there's anything I will say about the Russian people as a huge generalization, is that they will find a passion about something and they will just pursue it to this insane degree. So, I mean, you've got the miniature cities and stuff, and you've got this guy who's this artist. I mean, but people, there's not just artistic fields either. I mean, obviously you have incredibly accomplished artists and ballerinas and whatever. But I mean, I just find that with Russian people, they will choose one thing which they just live for. And will pursue to its utmost until they can find perfection. And so, I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, life here can be kind of a drudgery, but then you'll have these just geniuses, just these absolute sparks of geniuses. Which is just incredible.
I mean, it's I look at people that play musical instruments around here, and the thing is that they'll be very, very particular in terms of they'll play instruments to death, and you're thinking, what? But the fact is, it's something which they live for. The whole thing of dancing as well. So they have that particular. We call them hobbies, but for them they're real passions.
They're not hobbies. They're not hobbies. They give meaning to life. Yeah. Which is understandable. Okay. Cool. Well, all right. Well, I don't really have any further questions.
Cool.
So you're free. You're free. Hurrah! But thank you very much.
No problem.
Cool.
Okay.